Remember the Day, from the story by Philo Higley and Philip Dunning, and starring Loretta Young as Nora Trinell and Franchot Tone as Dan Hopkins. In the banquet room of Washington's Mayflower Hotel, political bigwigs are waiting for Dewey Roberts to speak, accepting his nomination as party candidate for the presidency of the United States. But while the politicians wait, Dewey Roberts sits in his hotel suite talking with an old friend, Nora Trinell, who was his schoolteacher back home in Indiana.
Remember the day you kept me after school and made me write, "I beg your pardon," 500 times, Miss Trinell?
Very well, Dewey. That was the day I met Dan Hopkins, and we had our first argument.
I remember. You wanted to take the class to see a matinee of Midsummer Night's Dream, and Dan had us scheduled to play an important ball game.
27 years ago. Yet when I close my eyes, I can still see Dan coming through that classroom door.
I beg your pardon. Are you Miss Trinell?
Yes?
I'm Dan Hopkins, one of your colleagues.
Oh, yes. How do you do?
Well, Miss Trinell, it seems we got our signals a little mixed.
Yes?
Yeah. You see, I've scheduled a very important baseball game for tomorrow afternoon.
Well, I'm afraid you'll have to postpone the game, Mr. Hopkins.
Oh, but that's impossible. Why don't you postpone your matinee?
Oh, but I can't. It's the only matinee they're playing.
Oh. Well, I'm afraid we're in the position of the irresistible force and the immovable object, aren't we?
I don't know how immovable an object you may be, Mr. Hopkins, but in this matter, I'm afraid that I'll have to be irresistible.
You are, in any matter.
Beg your pardon. Well, I think we really better let the principal decide this.
Now, wait a minute. Look, we're two grown, intelligent people.
Are we?
Well, what I mean is perhaps we ought to talk this over further without bringing Mr. Steele into it.
Did I hear you mention my name, Mr. Hopkins?
Well, in a way, yeah.
Oh, did you wish to see me about something?
Well, no. As a matter of fact, I didn't.
I do, Mr. Steele.
It wasn't anything of
importance.
importance.
I think it was.
Yes, Miss Trinell.
Mr. Hopkins and I were having a little argument, Mr. Steele, and I thought perhaps you might be able to settle it.
It wasn't anything, really.
Go on, Miss Trinell.
Well, we were just arguing about whether or not this taxing of one's income is constitutional.
Oh. Well, you don't have to worry about that, Miss Trinell. The House of Representatives will never pass an income tax law.
Oh.
You see, that's exactly what I told you.
Thank you, both of you.
Oh, that's quite all right, Miss Trinell. I'm glad to see you and Mr. Hopkins taking such an interest in national issues. If you have any more questions, I'll be in my office.
Do you? Have any more questions?
No.
Well, if you think of any, I'll be waiting outside.
So instead of going to the matinee of Midsummer Night's Dream, we played the ball game. And I hurt my knee and was out of school for the rest of the term. I remember making a boat model and asking you to come to my house to see it.
May I see the boat model you made, Dewey?
Well, the boat's right over there in the mantel, Miss Trinell.
Why, Dewey.
I hope you don't think I was fresh naming it to Miss Trinell.
Oh, it's just about the nicest thing that anyone ever did for me.
Gosh, you're beautiful, Miss Trinell.
Oh, you're practically overwhelming me with flattery, Dewey.
I'm sorry.
Oh, there's nothing to be sorry about. That was a very pretty compliment.
I certainly had a schoolboy crush on you, Miss Trinell. Incidentally, I still have that boat model, the Miss Trinell.
And I still have the one you made for me, the Mabel. That was the one that got Dan and me into such trouble.
Oh, yes, I remember. Something happened during your summer vacation.
Yes, at that time you were too young to understand what happened. Dan wanted me to spend my vacation at the same resort he was going to, but I was afraid someone might place the wrong construction on our spending the summer together. So I went with the other women teachers to what practically amounted to an old maid's home. After a couple of weeks, I was bored to death. And then one day, while I was hiking along a road, getting away from the incessant woman's chatter, Dan drove up.
Hello, Nora.
Dan!
I just happened to be staying at a lake about 210 miles from here, so I thought I'd drop over.
I'm so glad to see you, Dan.
I wondered if you'd like to go for a drive.
Well, will the drive take me away from here? To the place where you're spending your vacation?
Well, that's what I had in mind.
Well, that's exactly where I'd like to go.
Well, hop in.
Prince Charming.
Yes, Princess.
How did you know I was waiting to be rescued?
I'm psychic.
I'm glad you brought me here.
I suppose you know I'm in love with you. Did you hear what I said?
Mm-hmm.
What did I say?
You said you were in love with me.
Well, at least you were listening. Well, what have you to say about it?
Nothing except... Oh, Dan, are you sure?
Well, love isn't like a problem in arithmetic, Miss Trinell. Darling, you can't prove it. You're never sure of any of the answers.
Well, the lady at the hotel told me she'd like to see us married.
Well, her husband wouldn't.
Why not?
He's a businessman. When we're married, we'll only rent one room instead of two.
I think we'd better get back to the hotel. I want to send a postcard to Dewey Roberts.
Well, that's an idea. I think I'll send him one, too, just to remind him that school begins again next week. Good morning, Mr. Steele. Did you enjoy your vacation?
Yes, thank you.
You wish to see me?
Yes, Mr. Hopkins. Certain matters come to my attention.
Yes?
A delicate matter. One of great concern to me as principal of Auburn School.
Well, what is it, Mr. Steele?
Have you ever seen this postcard before?
Why, yes. I sent that to Dewey Roberts. It's a picture of the Mabel.
In my 23 years as principal of Auburn Grammar School, there has never been a tinge of scandal to smirch my record.
I'm afraid I don't follow you, Mr. Steele.
I'm asking you to resign today.
What?
Now. And if you refuse, I shall arrange for your immediate dismissal. We'll nip this thing in the bud before it gets beyond control.
Before what gets beyond control?
You admit you sent that card?
Well, certainly. What of it?
Here's a card sent by Miss Trinell, sent from the same place at approximately the same time of the same day.
Mr. Steele, where did you get these cards?
Oh, they fell into my hands quite by accident. Fortunately, no one else has seen them. But believe me, Mr. Hopkins, if the parents of the children of this school learned that you and Miss Trinell had spent the entire summer together, they'd tar and feather you and run you out of town.
Just what are you insinuating when you say spent the summer together?
You're missing the point, Mr. Hopkins. I'm not attempting to judge your moral conduct. But like myself, you're a teacher. You're in public life, and you must set an example. And I must make an example of you.
I see. Look, Mr. Steele, there's no one to blame in this matter but myself. I deliberately went where Miss Trinell was. Suppose I hand in my resignation. Wouldn't that be sufficient without causing her a lot of embarrassment? Why should she even have to know about it if, as you say, no one else knows but you?
I think that could be arranged, Mr. Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. May I speak with you a moment, please, Miss Trinell?
Certainly. Class, read pages 36 to 41 inclusive. What is it, dear?
Well, you're beautiful, Nora. You never looked so beautiful.
Oh, Dan, did you call me out of class just to tell me that...
No. Stand there against the wall in case you faint. I've got something exciting to tell you.
Are you insane?
Only about you. Nora, let's start conquering new worlds.
Why, you're talking as if you're out of your head.
Well, I'm happy, that's all. Come on, have you got the nerve?
Got the nerve for what?
To quit school and marry me right now, this minute.
Oh, but Dan, I'm teaching here.
Well, resign.
Oh, Dan, we're two responsible people. We can't just pass up duties and obligations because we want to.
I have.
Oh, no, Dan.
Oh, yes, Nora.
Oh, but Dan, we should have talked it over first. What did Mr. Steele say?
Oh, he fussed and blustered around, but he finally saw it my way.
Dan, there's something wrong.
No, Nora, it's right. Absolutely right, but you're right, too. It would be silly for both of us to pick up and leave at the same time.
Oh, when are you leaving?
Now.
No, Are you sure you're not keeping something from me?
Now, what could I possibly want to keep from
Well,
you,
I don't know.
darling?
It's just that I've never seen you quite like this before.
I've never seen me like this either. But I'll be back soon. I hope, and I'll put rings on your fingers and bells on your toes.
Oh, darling, I love you so.
That's the way to talk. No, don't come down to the door with me. Just stand there on the landing. Let me fill my eyes with you, just as you are, Miss Turnell. Well, smile. Just a little. I'll always remember you like that. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye. Dan. Dan! Oh, I knew there was something wrong.